Well, hello everyone. I'm excited to help you crush your Q4 goals. So Q4 is key for year-end results, and given what happened in Q3 for some of us, we may want to rethink our plans for Q4 because oftentimes, execution fails, unfortunately. More than 70% of plans falter. And so today we're going to focus on closing that gap and give you 3 practical moves that we show our clients to help them win, basically. I want to give you some tools that you can use right away to refine your approach, energize your teams, and crush those Q4 goals. So let's get started. So my name is Christina Haxton, and I am the founder and CEO of the Center for Sustainable Strategies. And for over 15 years, we've been helping companies of all sizes grow. Our mission is to get clarity of a strategic plan, get the teams who are going to be executing that strategic plan aligned, and to build a culture, basically, where 100% of the organization takes 100% ownership 100% of the time. Today, we're going to be doing a fire hose of a 50-minute deep dive into 3 actionable strategies that we teach our clients. There's also going to be a live Q&A at the end. So if you have questions or comments, or specifically questions, we'll save them to the end. Go ahead and put them in the chat. And at the end, we'll go ahead and go through those questions. And we'll also provide this replay as well as all the resources, the templates, and the checklists that we go through today for everybody who has who's watching us today. So if you feel like you missed something, don't worry, you're going to get it all at the end. So here's what we're going to get today. We're going to give you 3 actionable tools to use right away to help align your team. You're going to get proven results if you apply them. You can apply it right away. Works for businesses of any size, whether you're a solopreneur or whether you have a team of, executive or leadership team of 10 or 12. Hopefully it's not that big, but if it is, and this scales with you. Certainly you could scale it up or scale down any of these tools that you see today. So I'd like to do a vibe check, basically, kind of where are you at? What's your current stage? Are you just starting a 90-day plan to end the year? Are you veering off course? Are we, well, we're okay, but we figured out in Q3 we just didn't hit our goals and we're just a few degrees off. I don't know about you all, but I scuba dive, and it's really, really important to know how to navigate underwater because you don't really have a lot of frame of reference. And if you're 1 or 2 degrees off course and you're not paying attention to, in that navigation process, you could end up miles away. You never want to do that. You'll run out of oxygen, but you'll end up miles away from your destination. So you don't even want to be 1 or 2 degrees off course for very long at all. You've got to adjust ASAP. Maybe you're here and your team is crushing it. I just got off a call with a business coaching client, and they are doing so well in Q3, at the end of Q3, going into Q4, and this is their busiest time of year. We have clients that achieve their strategic goals with these processes 25% faster. So they've achieved their strategic goals in Q3 for the whole year. So it is possible. So where are you at? Maybe put it in the chat. Are you still staring at a blank page? Are you midway, but you're veering off course? Or are you absolutely crushing it? You've met your annual goals at the end of Q3, and you want to excel or exceed those in the next quarter. So go ahead and put that in the chat. Where are you at? So why are we doing this? Well, this is the reality, right? Stark reality of strategic execution. Strategic planning is one thing, but creating an executable strategic plan, again, whether you're a solopreneur or you're just starting a business, right? Or you've been in business and you're been in business 3 to 5 years, you've been in business 10 years or longer. It's really about how you're going to get that strategy executed. So, the numbers that you're looking at here in your screen, almost 70% of strategic plans fail. Harvard Business Review has done study after study to show that's the case. 90% of strategies aren't executed correctly. Maybe we have the wrong strategy, or we just because this is the way we've always done it. We've not looked back every quarter. With our clients, we do quarterly and annual reviews of quarterly reviews of the annual strategic plan. And even then, and we'll talk about a tool we'll call the weekly meeting rhythm. We are always making sure that we're on course, and we're not navigating off course, percentage by percentage or degree by degree, and keep doing that. And by the end of the year, we know we're way off course. 21% basically of executives report that there's a 4 quality test, basically in terms of, are we measuring the right things? If we're not measuring the right things, we're not going to end up achieving our goals. 61%, or over half of the decision making time, people feel is just ineffective. We talk about things ad nauseum, and we don't actually, one, arrive at a decision, 2, assign who's going to do what by when in terms of what action steps need to be taken so that that decision gets executed. And we miss opportunities. Our competitors get ahead of us. It just takes too long, and it's ineffective. It's very expensive to not achieve strategic goals, or to have the wrong plan, or to do the wrong things. 532 billion with a B in meeting costs just wasted. I mean, that's how much it costs to have meetings, whether your annual planning, your quarterly meetings, or even your 30-minute, hour, 2-hour, meetings once a week, once a month. They cost everybody time. So let's be efficient and effective with that. So the harsh truth is, a brilliant strategy is ineffective if we don't have an executable strategic plan that's owned by all. So let's talk about the first tool. So the first tool is what we call a meeting rhythm. Why? Because chaos drains people's energy, time, and attention. We've got to focus on the right things, not just being busy. I don't know about you, but somebody says, "How are you?" "I'm busy. I'm busy. I'm busy." Well, like, I don't always say. Sometimes I say this out loud. Sometimes I just keep it in my head, which is, that's great, you're busy, but does busy equal productivity, right? Is busy equal doing the right things? Or if I'm just, I've got a lot of activity going, but I'm wasting that energy and I'm not doing the right things. One of the things that the meeting rhythm is going to offer for you is you're going to have consistent, no BS, kind of strategic conversations. We're not going to get off into the weeds about, wasting our 30 minutes of time talking about things that don't matter. We're going to stay focused and stay consistent. So teams that are aligned can maintain focus, and they basically can push out the noise. We're going to have less head scratching, less wasted time being confused or chasing squirrels or bright shiny objects, and knowing that everybody's marching in the same clear direction. It is really simple. Oftentimes when chaos ensues, when there's a panic or a deadline, oftentimes people really can and do lose focus. So it's really important to reel everybody back in, make sure everyone's back in the boat. Everybody's got an oar. Everybody's oars are in the water. Nobody's oars out of the water and they're taking in the scenery, and for God's sakes, make sure that somebody isn't actively trying to sink the boat. So leadership teams really, really need to be in the same boat, rowing in the same direction. So what is important right now? Well, if everything's a priority, nothing's a priority, right? So everything's important. And I'm sure you either said this before, and if you have, shame on you, but you said this before, everything's important. But for people who are on a team or for your direct reports, they have to have guidance. I had somebody ask a question about, how do I ask the leadership team what is the priority in my department? What is the priority for funding a particular project, right? Or part of the strategic plan. And if if priorities keep switching, or if everything's a priority, people don't know where to focus their energy, time, and attention. So we really need to pick 1, 2, or 3 at the very most critical items to move the needle in a 90-day period. So ask for clarity, avoid diluting efforts, and avoid letting your people spread themselves thin, or you spread yourselves thin, or yourself thin. So the third question, so basically these are 3 questions, right? These 3 questions are going to inform your meeting agenda. What are we doing? What's most important right now? How do we know when we're winning is a second question. So if you can't measure it, you're guessing, right? What gets measured gets done. Make sure that you're measuring the right numbers. So if you have a scorecard and you've been measuring, maybe let's just say a lagging indicator, meaning past numbers that are in the past, right? How did we do? Maybe consider replacing it with, how are we going to do? Sorry, I have a very annoying fly. How are we going to measure in the next 90 days, right? What are we going to be doing? Like, for example, how many customer touches do we need to make in order to get a conversion rate, of 30 or 40%, right? Those are the number of touches. If that we need to make, 10,000 touches, a sales team needs to make 10,000 touches in a quarter. Sounds like a lot. How many do we need to make in 30 days? How many do we need to make in the next 30, 60 days, 30 days, 4 weeks, 3 weeks, 2 weeks, 1 week. So really, really make sure we break down the numbers into manageable, actionable steps, right? And if you find, looking at the data, which is data is not going to lie to you, your data is that you're off, right? You need to make more touches, or you don't have to make as many touches, or you need to make touches with the right clients, right type of clients, higher value clients, then for God's sakes, adjust course and do that differently starting now. Don't wait till next year, or we'll wait. You're going to miss opportunities if you do that. So, and metrics are your early warning system as well. You've got to have numbers. You've got to have the right numbers. Here's an example that I heard, that imagine you're on, when it comes to numbers. So imagine you are on a desert island. You don't have your phone, you don't have a laptop, you don't have a tablet, you don't have any social media, you don't have any way of knowing how your business is doing. And if you could just have 5 numbers that tell you how your business is doing when you're on this white, sandy, warm beach in the Caribbean, on Belize, for example, and the cabana person, the person, who brings drinks and refreshments and food, comes to you and hands you a Post-it with 5 numbers that you would say, if I knew these 5 numbers, I'd know exactly how my business is doing. Those 5 numbers on that Post-it would be your leading indicators, so that you can have some peace of mind and enjoy the rest of your vacation. Okay, so think about that. What 5 numbers would you have to know your business is successful? So the third question, so the first question is what's most important right now? Second question is how do we know we're winning? And the third question is what is getting in our way? So enough silent suffering, call out issues slowing us down. Now, this doesn't mean call out people. This means call out issues, right? This isn't about finger pointing or blaming. This is saying, what are the issues? Be objective, right? Drag obstacles or blockers into the light and assign an owner to kick them to the curb, right? They say, and one person needs to be an owner of a project or a tactic or a number, because if you have more than one person or more than one set of eyes, and you have to look at more than one set of eyes to get a question answered, you're not going to, they say if everybody owns it, nobody owns it. If two people own it, definitely nobody really owns it. We call it one throat to choke, but that's probably kind of a crass analogy. But we need to look into one set of eyes, one owner of one metric, one project, one tactic, who's responsible for that. So, and the third is, instead of complaining, as we do a lot of that in meetings, ask the question, what has to happen for that problem to be solved? What does done look like? What does solved look like? What do we do? What has to be decided? What do we do next? What or how questions are great questions to ask that are solution focused and results oriented. So instead of complaining and asking the why question, there's some time and place for why questions, but I really prefer replacing why with what or how, and then focusing on results, okay? So lock down a weekly 30-minute meeting with your leadership team. It's non-negotiable. It's the same day. It's the same time. These 3 questions are your agenda, okay? Keep it tight, keep it focused, and for the love of all that's productive, keep it consistent. With our clients, we really encourage them to make team rules, basically in scope and out of scope agreements with everybody on the leadership team. And very often, our clients will say, okay, so we have these weekly leadership meetings and they're only 30 minutes and we have to have them with consistency. And there's only 2 exceptions to missing a meeting. Like there's only 2 reasons why somebody would miss a leadership team meeting. One is death and the other is vacation, scheduled vacation, not calling in sick. Okay. So that's how critical it is to have these consistent, whether they're stand-up 30-minute meetings or quick sit-down 30-minute meetings. So this rhythm is just really critical. So keep that in mind. So what does the agenda look like? So here's an example agenda. This is a 3-question rhythm that we talked about previously. This goal, we're going to structured high impact meeting format that you could use at any level of the organization. It drives accountability, drives alignment without becoming a time drain. We want to emphasize that this framework is really designed to make meetings productive and contribute to achieving goals. So 30-minute meeting, 3 minutes. We want to start positive and we want to just have a welcome and we want to go around the virtual or actual table and talk about a win. What's a quick win? A recent success, or progress. Right? Everybody gets to speak to one thing. So this sets a good tone and it builds morale. For the next 5 minutes, then we review the top priorities, although priorities is not actually a real word. Remember what I said earlier, there's really only one priority. There's one priority, second priority, third priority, okay? We made up the word priorities because we have too many. So just know that. So eliminate the word from your vocabulary. So the top 3 priorities, 1, 2, and 3, 5 minutes. Quickly, we confirm that they are still the most 1, 2, or 3 critical outcomes for the week. This ensures everyone's aligned on what matters most. The third part of the agenda is what we call the 3-question rhythm, which is what we talked about just a few minutes ago. So 15 minutes, and somebody needs to be keeping time on this actually, right? So having a timer set, making sure that we stay on track and keep this meeting at 30 or 29 is even better. Nice to give people time back. So this is the core of the meeting. So we go around the room, virtual or in person. Each leader shares their answers to the following 3 questions. Now you can do what's most important right now and do a round. How will we know we're winning? We talk about metrics. What's getting in our way? We talk about obstacles. Or each leader goes and they answer the question, what's most important to me right now? How do we know we're winning? How do I know we're winning? And what's getting in our way? And maybe at a departmental level, you could be talking about that, or at an individual level. So it's important to capture action items and owners in real time as these questions are answered. I highly, highly, highly recommend that you use some form of note-taking AI, whether it's Otter AI or another AI tool that you have that captures meeting notes, whether it's Zoom meeting notes, right? Or Teams, I would imagine, has the same thing, to capture owners and action items, and then deliver those to everybody who's attended. Some of them are pretty cool. I don't remember which one it is, but we use Asana for our back of the end project management. We also use it for our client facing, for those who use Asana. And I believe, I don't know which note-taking app it is, but can actually put action items into Asana. So if you can find something that integrates with your calendar, because what gets calendared gets done, not just a to-do list, but something in the calendar to do that is phenomenal. So in the next 5 minutes, we're going to resolve the blockers and assign owners to each obstacle or blocker. Dedicate time, right, to turning identified obstacles into, okay, what has to happen next or what has to be decided so we can resolve that problem. We call it who's going to do what by when, or WWW. Actually, it's a tool from Scaling Up. So after every meeting, including this one, especially this one, WWW, we put it on a sticky flip chart and say who is going to do what by when, right? So we have an owner, we have a what does done look like what are they going to do, right? It's the action, by when, right? And then we follow up on that to make sure that that person knows the next time we have a meeting, we're going to go through who was supposed to do what by when, right? So we have ownership taking there. So in the last 2 minutes, we're going to confirm next steps and we're going to close, right? Recapping all the commitments, who's going to do what by when, and the meeting on a clear, positive note, and reinforce, teamwork and collective progress. So I'd say, a few tips for success: stay focused. The meeting is for decisions and actions, not lengthy status updates or excuses or reasons. Just keep it sharp, keep it moving forward. Another tip for success in these weekly meetings, which is to track progress, right? Using a digital tool like Asana or Trello to capture action items and owners. Track commitments, track KPIs, and I did mention using an AI note taker also. The third tip is to rotate your facilitator. Let everybody on that team be a facilitator, and that is to keep things on track, to keep time, and to shut down any extraneous conversation, obviously in a polite way, or use a cowbell, or don't use an annoying whistle, or something just to keep it on track. And that way that becomes a shared responsibility for everybody. So you don't want to let one person always run the meeting, and then rotating the facilitator, I think increases engagement and ownership and keeps energy high. So midweek check-in, like real quick email that we're chat, right, that can prevent small issues from becoming dumpster fires in, within, by the next meeting. So right now, go ahead, you'll get this slide too, but think about, like, is this an agenda that you could experiment with and see if you want to implement this? And this is something you can implement immediately, right? Let everybody know what to expect. Here's how we're going to do it going forward. We're going to try it and see how it works. Okay. Awesome. All right. So let's talk about your one-page KPI dashboard, right? So we talked about having a one-page dashboard or a scorecard that everybody can look at. And the expectation is that everybody knows what everybody's numbers are, including our own. We're going to focus on the numbers that we decided we're going to try to measure and see if we're measuring the right thing. So we want to have 5 to 7 predictive metrics. And we're talking about the, not only the annual goals, but now we're looking at what's the 90-day goal, right? In this case, we're looking at Q4. 5 to 7 predictive metrics that are accurate. Sometimes we have to measure things for a while before we realize whether we're measuring the right thing or not, right? So we have to evaluate. We have our clients evaluate that every quarter. If it's influenceable this week, if it's something that I can take an action on this week, we keep that metric. Old data, old reports, trash it, right? We don't need to clutter the visual field. We call it trash vanity metrics, right? Well, they look good. Revenue is kind of an example of that. And people go, what do you mean you don't measure revenue? Well, we do measure revenue, but actually we feel like cash is king. So we measure cash flow and profitability. Those probably might be in addition to revenue. I think revenue is kind of a vanity metric, to be honest with you, but cash flow and profitability, if you really want to get down to brass tacks about it. Doesn't force an action. Like if it's a metric that doesn't have an action behind it, then delete it. Right? So just stop the digital clutter, get clear and get focused and keep it simple, right? No overcomplicated metrics. So when it comes to a dashboard, one of the easy things to have, and this could be virtual or digital, or this could be, on a spreadsheet. This could be on a flip chart in the meeting room, right? Color coding, right? We can look at, at the dashboard, we have the KPI, right? Which is, revenue is one KPI, number of new clients we need to achieve in the week, for example, or in the month or in the quarter. Customer satisfaction, great number, right? Or NPI numbers. So we've got our KPI, then we've got the target number, right, that we've agreed to, that's going to know if we're on track or off track. We've got the current, like where are we at currently? What's our target? Who owns it? What's the status? Is it green, on track? That if we keep going at this pace with that number, we're going to achieve at the end of 90 days or Q4, we're going to achieve our goal or exceed our goal. Is it on track, but potentially at risk? That's yellow. Or is it at risk? For sure is off track, and that's red. Notes or actions, like, okay, and so what are we going to do to get that back on track, right? How do we ensure we stay on track with that? So who's going to do what by when, right? So that becomes another opportunity for ownership. Okay, so that's the one-page KPI dashboard that we use in the weekly meeting. So move number 3. So move number 3 are scenario plannings or what if playbooks. Now, there's an upside and a downside to this. So if we don't use scenario planning, what happens is we get surprised or blindsided by something out of our control. We lose our biggest client, right? I don't know, something we can't control, there's a war breaks out in another country. Yeah. Administration makes a regulation change or something just sudden happens, right? And we're not prepared for it. Scenario planning is good because we want to do it, but we don't want to do it so much to the excess that it causes so much overwhelm and anxiety. So I say it's like Goldilocks. We don't want to do too little or none. We don't want to do too much. We want to just have just right enough, the right amount of scenario planning. So if we have a what if playbook that everybody in the leadership team, can actually talk through before something becomes a problem, then when the stress is really high, when we actually are really poor, our brains are not designed to make great decisions under extreme stress. We need a little bit's good, but too much is not great for decision making because our prefrontal cortex goes to sleep, and that's the executive function part of the brain that makes decisions, um, remembers, understands, comprehends. When we're in lizard brain or really, really high stress, lizard brain's the low road, or the part of the brain um, that is responsible for fight, flight, freeze. We don't make great decisions in that state. So if we can make some of these, excuse me, decisions before the stress barometer gets too high, and then people are in conflict, etc., then we're going to have a much easier time getting through that. So what we want to do is we want to turn uncertainty into action. And we want to own the chaos. We want to be either ahead of it or be able to grab the steering wheel if things start to get wobbly. So we want to anticipate some critical events. We want to pre-plan our responses. We want to eliminate decision fatigue. If we can make the decision while the cost is lower, then that's much better than just waiting to be blindsided or sticking our head in the sand. Because then we're going to be able to really confidently execute that plan because we've already decided. So, what are the triggers? For example, what are some critical business breaking points that are, on the horizon, something a competitor could do, something that could happen internally? Oh gosh, I hate to bring this up, but remember 2020, right? Nobody was expecting that to happen. And if we had any kind of business continuity plans in place already before 2020, we had a much easier time navigating all the uncertainty especially for as long as it went on. And some companies had to create a business continuity plan, not only internally, but for their, that for their clients or customers to not lose them. So just recognize there could be another 2020. Unfortunately, we want to plan for that, right? And then we also want to map out the moves. 3 to 5 concrete actions. Who's going to do what by when? What decisions need to be made? How do we communicate those decisions? How do we allocate resources? And the third part of the what if playbook is to assign ownership, right? Clear roles, who leads, who supports, to ensure seamless execution. So move number 3, what if playbook. All right. And make sure that if you have any questions that you put it in the chat, and we'll make sure to answer those questions toward the end. So a good example of this is one of our clients, a SaaS company. They built a playbook for really ugly scenarios, worst case and almost worst case. Turns out one of their biggest clients threatened to bail, and in kind of the beginning of the middle of Q3. So they're going into Q4, and they didn't panic because, knowing they had kind of had all their eggs in one basket, as soon as the client threatened it and they pulled out their playbook, they executed it, they saved the account in a couple of days, literally. But they'd already thought about it, right? They already knew this competitor was coming after their client. And they, rather than sticking their head in their sand, they got proactive about it, and they didn't, go into lizard brain, or they didn't freeze. They'd already mapped out the actions. They know who owned what. They even practiced the conversation with this client. So imagine that. Wouldn't that be nice to be prepared instead of panicked, right? So that's what we're going for. All right. So this slide basically lines out essential components of the what if playbook. So potential crises can be turned into manageable situations if you have the right pieces in place. So each element's critical, and so pay attention. So say, for example, we talk about the scenario or trigger. Now, this is a conversation that we have, around, the leadership table, if you will. Everybody imagine a scenario or trigger. What could happen? Like what specifically, could happen, an event or a condition that would require the activation of the playbook? Well, major competitor launches a new product, key supplier experiences a delay or, taps out completely. Uh, Tariffs, good example. Revenue falls 15%, below forecast for 2 consecutive weeks. So be very specific what the trigger is or the scenario is to pull out this playbook. No, everybody chimes in. The next is immediate actions. What are the step-by-step immediate actions that need to happen within the first 24 hours, 48 hours? Rapid assessment, stabilization. That's what's most important. For example, convene core response team, gather market intelligence, communicate internally to sales teams. So those are very specific actions that need to take place in the first 24, immediately, first 24 hours, first 48 hours. The third part of the scenario planning is owners, right? So clearly identify who's responsible for leading the overall response and who owns specific immediate actions. So you assign a single point of accountability or ownership. For example, in this, other example, VP of sales would be the one to communicate to the sales team. And I know some of this might sound common sense, but in a crisis, we forget the details, we forget what we've talked about or verbally agreed to. It's a writer downer. Okay. Head of product, CFO, right? Be very specific about not so much the person who's responsible, but the title who's responsible, because the person might not be there when this happens, but the title would be. The next is a communication plan. Detail who needs to know what, how they will be informed. Make sure you include internal and external stakeholders. For example, send an internal memo to all employees. Who's going to do that? Customer email templates already prepared. Maybe it's, 80% of the way there, but we put in the details. So you don't have to craft it in that moment. The template's already there. Board update draft, right? So make sure that the communication, internal and external, is already decided and even templated out. The next step are contingency steps. So contingency steps are secondary actions or alternative plans, right? So for example, if this, then that. So if X happens, then Y gets done, right? That's a logic, right? So use that logic to anticipate next steps based on the initial outcome, right? If initial market response is negative, pivot to message X, for example. If supplier delays products, activate secondary supplier Z. Okay, so again, very spelled out. Then the last thing to be done is to have a review date. So set a specific date to revisit the playbook, ensure its relevance, and update with new information. I recommend we do this quarterly, minimally annually, but the way, or maybe twice a year. But boy, the way, as quickly as things change and have been changing, I'd say more, probably not monthly, but quarterly for sure. So update it with new information, lessons learned. So for example, during quarterly review or before Q1 2025 planning session, just to have eyeballs on it to make sure it's updated. So you want to fill out this playbook for each what if scenario that gets identified in the first part of the conversation, and review and update it regularly. Keep your team agile, keep them feeling prepared and confident, right? And we're in a proactive rather than a reactive stance. Okay, so if you have any questions about the playbook, let me know. Go ahead and put it in the chat. All right, so this is going to be, you're going to get this template basically. So this is what we just talked through. This is the what if playbook. Setting top priorities. The second is run alignment meeting. Third is update the oh, I take it back. Sorry. So these are Q4 weekly action steps. So these are the four things, I'm sorry, the 7 things that you want to be doing weekly. Okay. So number 1, set up top priorities. You have 1 to 3 outcomes for the week. You run your alignment meeting, with your weekly cadence. The third is you update your KPI dashboard to make sure metrics are all current. 4 is we resolve blockers. 5 is review the playbook. What if scenarios and updates. Now, that's if there's anything current going on. If nothing current is going on, the quarterly review of the scenario playbook is good. Communicate any kind of changes. So we want to share plan pivots with, not only amongst us in the leadership team, but you have to cascade that information down. And the 7, and follow up on actions, confirm ownerships and deadlines. So you can use this as your weekly meeting agenda for accountability. All right. So no more excuses. Here's your action plan. Q4, get stuff done. GSD checklist, right? The meeting rhythm starter kit, the KPI dashboard template, and the playbook framework. So these are 4 items that you're going to get as templates in addition to this replay and everything that we talked about in here, so that you can stay focused and stay aligned and get things done. So here's your turn. So in the Q&A, put in your question, put in your comment, put in your yes, but, what if scenario. So here we've got a few here. So this one's about team buy-in. So how do I get commitment for this? Well, I think that if you want to get commitment with your colleagues, for example, and you're not the CEO and you can't make the rules and push them down, but maybe you're part of a leadership team now, and you think, I'd really like to get some commitment on doing one or all of these. I think that because the majority of people feel that, we're not, especially if you look at Q3 and your results are not what you want, it would be a good case to say, let's try Q4, right? And let's see if we can't make this Q4, let's do something different so we don't get the same results that we did in Q3 if we didn't like those results. It's simple, it's easy. It's not one more thing. It will help you be more effective and efficient. So you certainly could, when it comes to taking less time, being less expensive, there's all kinds of reasons to be able to implement a strategy that's going to save time and save money. I think those are the 2 biggest priorities. And who wouldn't want to do those things, right? So that's one way to get buy-in. Let's try it for a quarter and see how it goes. And if it doesn't work, then we go back to what we were doing, right? How do we priorities? Like, what do we tackle first? Well, Amongst all of these, I think what we can tackle first, probably what's the low-hanging fruit? What's the easiest thing to begin to do? Which strategy? For some people, it's the meeting rhythm, because most people complain meetings aren't effective anyway, right? So it's 30 minutes. It's having a team agreement as to when we're going to do this. Making sure that everybody agrees to be there and show up for each other, and then to try it out, right? Next question is, I don't know if I can scale this. My team is really small. I'll be honest with you, you can implement this. It sounds a little wackadoodle if you're just by yourself, but I use this in our business, and we have a very, very small team. So being able to set aside time to make strategic plans, whether it's an annual plan, a quarterly plan, or a weekly plan, having that consistency and cadence and discipline to work, to set aside time to take strategic action on your business. So there's a difference between working on your business and in your business. And many people who are, whether you're a founder, you're an owner operator, probably spend way too much time working in the business, meaning delivering services, some of the minutia, that the administration, especially, that we do, and working on our business. So let's just say, we're a solopreneur or a micro business. We have a small team. We have a 40-hour a week. And people are like, yeah, right, 40-hour week. Well, let's just imagine we have a 40-hour week. 16 of those hours need to be spent working on your business development, right? Process development, client acquisition strategy. So, marketing and sales strategy, visibility. So all the business development, 16 out of the 40 hours, right? So that's how much dedication we need to put into. Otherwise, what happens is, say, we have our cash flows great, right? And we're busy delivering services or making products as a business owner. And then project ends, right? So then what happens to cash flow? We look at that funnel and we're like, oh crap, like funnel's empty. And then cash flow dips, right? And then we get, more client work and cash flow goes up. And we really want to level out those peaks and valleys, because cash is king. And if our cash flow is irregular, whether it's because we're a solopreneur, a small business, even mid-market, that's no bueno, right? That's not sustainable, and that's chaotic. So any of these processes can be scaled up or scaled down, no matter what the size of your company is, right? So what I want to point to next, and to suggest, is that if you or your team has a need to, whether it's a full-blown strategic plan for 2026, or whether it's just looking at our strategic plan and we need a 90-day plan or roadmap, to make sure that we crush our goals Q4, we offer that service. So we offer a strategy accelerator for those who are meeting or exceeding their goals and they really want to knock it out of the park for Q4. Or if, you have kind of a fuzzy 90-day plan, or you need to make adjustments or serious pivots for the next 90 days, we offer a one-day strategy session to get the team aligned, get the strategy aligned, or make adjustments to the part of the strategy. And we offer facilitation for that as well. So if you're ready to kind of move beyond vague plans, or if hope is your strategy for meeting your goals, hope should never be a strategy. And if you're looking in the next 30, 60, 90 days to come up with a really solid plan that can not only be executed by the executive team or the leadership team, but also, here's what's super important, is how do we cascade that plan down so 100% of our people take 100% ownership 100% of the time, and an inclusive strategic planning process. It is robust. That annual planning process is robust. It does involve everybody in the company. And I had a had a business owner, and they said, "Oh, it just involves, me and the team." I'm like, "Mm-mm, it involves anybody." And he kind of stepped back a little bit, and he's like he didn't think that was a great idea, but he also didn't know how to do it. I think that was that was the objection. And we actually ended up doing that inclusive strategic planning process with this company, and they met their strategic goals at the end of Q3. And this was a family-owned business. This was a business that was struggling from a cash flow perspective, also was struggling from a culture perspective. And so with our support, and we partnered with them, rolled up our sleeves, went in and worked with the entire company to not only create an executable strategic plan that was owned by all, but actually really helped them to build out, what their organization, the structure of the organization really needed to look like in order to scale and to grow. So instead of it being a lagging metric in terms of, here's our organizational structure, but we looked at it as an opportunity to go, here's what the organizational structure needed to look like in order to achieve our growth goals in the next 18 months. So we do offer those services. If you are interested in learning more about our capabilities, whether it's business coaching, whether it's executive coaching, team alignment coaching for your team, no matter how large or small, or it's leadership development, developing individual leaders to be able to execute strategy. Please use the QR code, contact us, schedule a capabilities briefing, real quick, no pitch, just 20 minutes. Here's what we can offer. We'd love to be in your hip pocket for if and when you need strategic planning, execution, business coaching, executive coaching, leadership development. So for now, thank you so much for coming. If you're watching this live, or if you are participating in the replay, we're going to go ahead and get all those resources sent out to you as well. And I'm going to kill this fly. So, have a great rest of your day.